Welcome to Bits and Pieces Quilting. Today is November 11th, 2025, Remembrance Day in Canada. And today I'd like to pay tribute to all of the Canadian Armed Forces currently serving, veterans, and those who have passed for all of their sacrifices. So stay tuned. Hi, I'm Michelle, and today I want to share a quilt that I've made with you, for Quilts of Valor Canada. Quilts of Valor is dedicated to enrobing our military service personnel with hugs of warmth and thanks for all that they have sacrificed. I do a lot of sewing for Quilts of Valor Canada, and I have this incredible collection of fabric. It's a Northcott line of fabric. It's Canadiana fabric, and I've collected the bits and pieces from friends, from other projects, to turn into yet more quilts. So the quilt I want to share with you today is a scrappy quilt, but it still uses those beautiful Canadiana fabrics. So let's dive in and I'll show you how to make it. For this project, I've dug out these scraps and I've done a little bit of quilting math to make sure that I have enough, and I think I do. So the idea is to make kind of a half square triangle block, and I'm going to have the red in this half of the block with the gray in the middle, and then the cream color in the top half of the block. And then I'm going to be able to treat it like a half log cabin or just even like a half square triangle. And I think this is going to work out really well. I've calculated to make with 2.5-inch strips, I'm going to end up with a 6.5-inch block. And for the size that I'm looking for, which is about 60 by 70 or so, I'm going to do 10 by 12 for 120 blocks. So that's a lot of blocks. Based on that, I'm going to need 120 pieces, 2.5-inch squares of the gray. And so with quilting math, I think I need about 7.5 strips of gray. So I've measured that up and I should have enough. For the cream colors, I have I put them into 3 different piles. I have these sort of densely packed maple leaves, and there's 8 strips here. I have these lighter colored ones that I'm going to just mix up and treat as scrappy, and there should be enough there. And then I have this slightly ombre effect, light beige with a few of the red leaves. So there should be enough of that as well. And I have 3 different places in the block for the light colored fabrics, and I think I'm just going to put 1 in each of those places. And then the reds I'm going to mix up. I've got about 4 different reds here, and I'll just mix those up randomly. So to get started, I'm going to press things, and things that aren't cut into 2.5-inch strips, I'm going to get those trimmed up. Then I'm going to start making some strip sets, and I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. I've got a bunch of fabrics cut, and I am super keen to get sewing. So the gray ones are finished, and I think I've got enough. I've decided I'm going to make my blocks exactly the same. So all of this maple leaf beige is going to go beside the gray. And this is a little bit of a hodgepodge of really light cream colors. Those are all going to go in the top corner. And this cream, it's actually an ombre cream with a little bit of red sprinkled through it. That's going to go in this second position here. I'm going to keep it consistent, I think just for my brain, just so that I'm not trying to mix them up. So I think I'm going to keep it consistent. The reds are going to be completely scrappy because there's not a huge amount of variety amongst the reds. I'm going to cut a few more pieces and then I'm going to start sewing. Now I could cut 4.5-inch bricks for this space in the block and for the 2 or even the 3 reds that grow across the bottom. But I really want to use the scraps. I really want to make this scrap friendly. And so keeping the 2.5-inch squares in every position is going to help me to do that. I think it might look really cool to try this pattern again in a truly scrappy way, not with this red and white with the gray in the middle. So I want the texture that the 9 different patches are going to give me, and I don't want to think too much about where the bricks go and cutting pieces that are big enough for bricks. So I'm going to get started with just some really rote sewing, and on a slightly gloomy Saturday afternoon, that sounds just about perfect. I have also looked at a pressing strategy. So I'm going to make a few strip sets and then come back and talk a little bit about the pressing strategy. I've made my 3 different strip sets, which was a lot of rote sewing, and then chopped them all up, which went surprisingly quickly. This isn't enough for the whole quilt. There's about 50 in each pile, so that gets me not quite halfway, but it's gone really quite quickly. I looked at the pattern and I've decided that I'm going to press these rows the same way and then this row alternate. And then I'm going to divide them into 2 piles and press some seams up and some seams down. As I looked at the pattern, I think that's going to allow most of the seams to nest. There's a couple of places where it doesn't quite work, but for the majority of places, that kind of a pressing strategy looks like it's going to work. The alternative was to press the seams open, and you know how much I love pressing seams open, but that would have been, I think, a real pain in the neck to try to get every single one of these seams lined up and would have taken forever. So I'm going to nest my seams, which I think is going to go pretty quickly, and we'll see as I'm assembling it if that was the right choice or not. I have all my blocks made. This is 120 blocks. They're all exactly the same, except these ones have all been pressed with the seams all that way, and these ones have been pressed with all the seams this way. So hopefully these will nest. I wanted to point out a few of the blocks. I've got about 40 of them with this particular piece of fabric in it, and I was looking in the scrap bin for some of the pieces to make this project, and I found a whole bunch of pieces like this and even longer, and they were clearly leftovers from some effort at making bindings or sashings or something. And I measured them up. They had the cream color on the outside and the red, this red, on the inside. And in some cases, they had the cream in the center and the red on the outside. So clearly it was for some kind of a project. And when I measured it, I realized that if I cut these in half, I would get perfect 2-patch units for this project. So I was thrilled to be able to use up these kinds of scraps that were in the bins that I found. So I've split these pieces up across both the pressed up and the pressed down piles, so they're going to be scattered across the quilt. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each of these piles and divide them up in half yet again, because I want to make sure I sprinkle these fabrics across all 4 quadrants of the quilt. And in this area, I have a few of these slightly more detailed cream colored ones, and I want those nicely sprinkled around the quilt. So I'm going to divide them all up and then start the layout and sew it together. The layout is really simple. It's just a matter of twisting the blocks in different directions, following the instructions on the pattern. And these are almost like half square triangles. So these will come together and create rows and furrows depending on the layout. So I'm going to get started. It's going to take a little bit of time to sew 120 blocks together, but I'm looking forward to seeing it. And this is the final quilt. I'm really happy with the way that this has turned out. For such a simple block, it's the layout that makes it look spectacular, I think. I'm really happy with the gray blocks in this. And when I do this project again, because I will do this project again, I really like it. I'm going to do it really scrappy, but I think I'll try to put either the same fabric or at least the same color in the position where those gray blocks are. I think it brings a little design element to it, and I think it will bring it some unity in a really scrappy quilt. I'm also really happy with the way that the beige with the little red bits. I was a little nervous about those not blending in really nicely, but I like the way that those little maple leaves are scattered around the whole quilt. This is super beginner friendly, super scrap friendly. I will put a free pattern for you on my website, but it's not quite ready yet. Life has been a little bit busy lately, but there's lots of free patterns there now at Bits and Pieces, www.bitsandpiecesquilting.com. And within the next 2 weeks, I will have a free pattern for this project up on my website, and I hope you give it a try. Thanks very much for joining me today. I hope you liked this quilt. It's a great scrappy quilt, but most importantly, I'm excited that it's going to go to Quilts of Valor as some of my personal thanks to our veterans and our service members for all that they do for Canada and for the world. On this Remembrance Day, I hope you take a moment to thank the service people in your lives, both past and present. I know that I have family members and Jason has family members that have served. And we're ever grateful for the freedoms that we enjoy. Thanks.